Namo Buddhaya Vandami Bante.
Yes, hello.
Hi. Greetings and welcome all to Living Dhamma USA Weekly Dhamma Discourse. I am Sunil Patil, your host for today's Dhamma session, and it's truly a pleasure to have each and every one of you joining us for our weekly exploration of the Dhamma. Today we explore a profound topic, mental fabrication, that holds immense relevance in our journey towards understanding and wisdom. Leading us in this exploration is Venerable Monk Sarana, who comes from Vinayalankara Meditation Center located in Czech Republic. Let me introduce our speaker today, Monk Sarana. Monk Sarana, born in Czech Republic and known as John Tovisek during his layperson days, studied at the Catholic High School of Pilsen in West Bohemia. Monk Sarana began his spiritual journey at the age of 15 when he discovered Buddhism in a local library. In 2007, at the age of 20, he relocated to Sri Lanka, where he became a novice Czech Sarana and trained under the guidance of Venerable Pemasiri Thero. In 2012, Czech Sarana received a bachelor's degree in Buddhist philosophy and religious studies from the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka, Homagama, and moved to Myanmar, where he was ordained as Bhikkhu Ashin Sarana in Shwe U Min Twaya of Minga Lardon. There, with the support of his preceptor, Sayadaw U Pannavamsa, he trained for 5 years in meditation according to the meditation technique of Venerable Pemasiri and Sayadaw U Tejaniya, and memorized Pali scriptures, especially Parajika Pali and Pachitya Pali of Vinaya Pitaka. From 2017, Ashin Sarana actively shared Dhamma and meditation instruction in meditation centers, Sakana Gitwaya of Legu and Rahula Kyong of Mabi to non-Burmese and Burmese students alike. All the while, he also conducted teachings of Dhamma and meditation internationally in countries like Australia, USA, Singapore, Thailand, and in various European nations. In response to military coup in Myanmar in 2021, Ashin Sarana left the country and returned to Czech Republic to support the people's pursuit of fundamental freedoms. In 2022, he accepted an invitation to Vietnam to continue his mission of teaching Dhamma and meditation. Since 2019, Ashin Sarana has been actively engaged in teaching Dhamma to preteen and teenage children through online classes. Additionally, he has participated in monthly or bi-weekly inter-religious dialogues organized by HWPL. Since 2022, Ashin Sarana has been pursuing a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling at Liberty University in Virginia. To begin with, we will ask Kama Yachana and Panchashil Yachana to Bante. Okasa Vandami Bante Dvarataena Maya Katam Sabba Aparadam Kamatume Bante Dutiyampi Okasa Vandami Bante Dvarataena Maya Katam Sabba Aparadam Kamatume Bante Tatiyampi Okasa Vandami Bante Dvarataena Maya Katam Sabba Aparadam Kamatume Bante. Panchashila Yachana. Okasa Aham Bante Tisaranena Sa Panchasila Dhammam Yachami Anukkaham Katva Silam Detame Bante Dutiyampi Okasa Aham Bante Tisaranena Sa Panchasila Dhammam Yachami Anukkaham Katva Silam Detame Bante Tatiyampi Okasa Aham Bante Tisaranena Sah Panchasilam Dhammam Yachami Anukkaham Katva Silam Detame Bante.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddham saranam gacchami, tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami.
Sarana-gamanang paripunnang
Ambante
panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
panatipata veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinnadana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Kame sumichhajara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kame sumichchachara veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Surameraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sura meraya majjapamadatthana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
Visaranena saddheng panchasilang dhammang sadhukang surakkhitam katva appamadena sampadetha.
Ambante sadhu sadhu sadhu. Without further delay, let's begin on this enlightening journey together with monk Sarana on the topic mental fabrication. Over to you, Bante.
So, mental fabrications. This is a lecture that is a continuation on two previous lectures. So, we are today going to look at the highest level of this topic. Previously, we were talking about the bodily formation, and we were also talking about the verbal formation. So bodily formations, in terms of bodily formations, we were considering the breath. And bodily formations are best settled, or they subside with the fourth jhana. So that's because the bodily formations, the breath, which is created by the body, and thus it is formed by the body, and that's why we call it the bodily formations, because it's formed, created, made by the body. The breath, if it has to subside, then that means that we will not have breath. And to not have breath, it is necessary to achieve the fourth jhana. So in the fourth jhana, what actually happens is that the breath is no more needed. When you achieve the first, second, third jhana, there's still, you need the object of your breath. But for the fourth jhana, what is your object, is actually what previously was just an accompanying bonus in the first, before the first jhana, that's the nimitta. But in the fourth jhana, actually you stay with the nimitta of the breath, no more the breath itself. So the nimitta of the breath is what leads you through the four jhanas, and which becomes stronger and more clear, and which becomes more and more predominant over the breath. So in the fourth jhana, you stay with the light, you stay with your nimitta, but the breath is no more needed. You can think of it as a gradual journey, gradual transition. You start your meditation by breathing in, breathing out. You may like to count 1 to 10. And then you count again 1 to 10, your breaths. Then gradually you achieve some kind of concentration. You will see that your 5 hindrances, that's lust, hatred, laziness, restlessness, and doubt, they gradually subside to such a level that your mind is no more disturbed. Thus it is free. What's the free here? Well, you're not free to be lustful or angry. So how are you free then? You are free to fulfill your wish to be with your object, because that's your wish. That's the expectation. So if you did not have wish to be with your object, probably you would not be meditating. So the aspect of being free or not being free during meditation would not count here, because you would not be meditating. So if you meditate with the intention to be concentrated, well, then freedom then is that your wish will be fulfilled through your own effort, not through the power of a god or through being lucky. So to be, that means to have the power to decide what will happen, in this particular case, to be concentrated, be it on loving kindness or breath or white color or whatever is the object. That for that is necessary to somehow resolve these 5 hindrances. And there are 3 ways how you can resolve the 5 hindrances. So that's why I do not say eradicate, because that would be just one of the 3. You eradicate the 5 hindrances through 3 levels, or 3 levels. One level is the so-called Tadanga Pahana. Tadanga Pahana seems to be explained by different monks in different ways, but our scriptures explain Tadanga Pahana in one way, and that is achieve the 3rd level of Vipassana Jnana, insight knowledge. Again, this teaching expects that you have seen the lecture 1, lecture 2 of this 3-part series. So if I say things you don't understand, maybe you would like to write it down and then Google it later, or you may like to ask me after the Dhamma talk. Actually, a little question for the organizer: how many minutes do I have for this my individual speech?
But it's totally up to you.
My question is, how many minutes can I dedicate for this my individual speech before we get to questions answers?
Yeah, it's totally up to you. You can take as long as you wish.
Okay, so let's take, I will aim for 25 minutes more.
Sure.
So then the insight knowledges, there are 16 insight knowledges, and it's a system that is very complicated, but it helps meditation teachers better understand where the student has come. And so out of these 16 levels, where the level 15 is enlightenment, not 16 is what happens after enlightenment, but 15 is enlightenment. So you aim at level 10. So when you get to level 10, then you're pretty good. If you can get to level 10, then from level 10, it's easier to achieve level 15. Usually, maybe not usually, but sometimes it takes a few seconds. So level 10, however, achieve level 10 may take 10 years or 20 years or even longer, or several lives. So the 3rd level, not the 10th level, not the 15th, the 3rd level, that's the level to which you get through first, distinguishing of the body and the mind. So you clearly know that the body and the mind are two things which are different and real, then you understand the conditionality, is the second one, conditionality between the body and the mind. And then as the third level, you understand impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, of the body and the mind. As you may already now presume or suspect, many people who come to this third level believe that they are enlightened. But as you can see, third and 15th are quite far away from each other. So it's not enlightenment yet, but it may feel like that to some. And so when people come to this third level, their 5 hindrances are pretty well suppressed, but it's only partial and it's only temporary. Second way of suppressing is through jhana. So if the person achieves a very deep level of concentration, then their hindrances are suppressed. The jhana itself suppresses the hindrances for a long time. In other words, first you need to work very hard to suppress the 5 hindrances one way or another, by thinking, by having a good friend, or by staying in a forest where, or in a monastery where monks can read your mind, or something like that. You just apply various solutions. There are altogether 30 solutions to deal with the 5 hindrances. So you apply these various solutions, and then as your hindrances somehow subside or seem to be subsided, then you may achieve jhana. And the jhana itself will suppress the hindrances for a long time. And that's a really powerful suppression. But it's temporary. And again, it's not really perfect. It's rather sweeping the hindrances under the rug. Then there is the third level of dealing with hindrances, and that is eradicating, total eradication, total extermination of the 5 hindrances. And that is through one or another levels of enlightenment, of nibbana. I like to call it enlightenment because the Buddha also speaks of enlightenment as alogo, which means light. So enlightenment. Doesn't mean, however, here many great masters also misunderstand, and it's very sad because they do not have really reference. They provide reference, but it fails. It's not correct reference. It doesn't say what they say. So enlightenment is not light in terms of color or in terms of photons. Not at all. That's not what we mean by enlightenment. We mean enlightenment by the clarity of reality. So you clearly understand reality. That's why it's called enlightenment. Not because there would be some photons or some kalapas and so on. Absolutely not. Again, you may get a reference. Check the reference. If you check the reference and you check its sub-commentary, you will find out that there is a huge problem with this. Not a real light. It's just the clarity of understanding the reality. I have actually written a little article on this. So if somebody is interested, I can later provide a link to that. So there, the enlightenment entirely eradicates the hindrances. The first level of enlightenment eradicates hindrance number 5, that's doubt. The second level of enlightenment, there are 4. The second level of enlightenment reduces significantly the power of hindrances number 1 and 2, that's lust and hatred, or ill will is more accurate. And then enlightenment level number 3 entirely eradicates, exterminates hindrance number 1 and 2, and the remaining hindrances 3 and 4, which is laziness and restlessness, they are entirely eradicated by the highest level of enlightenment, by the arahanthood. So this is the third level of suppression. Now we will go back to the topic, and we are talking here about formations. Bodily formations, namely the breath, is eradicated with the 4th jhana. But with the 4th jhana, what you get is suppression of the hindrances to a very, very deep level. With each jhana, the hindrances are suppressed, and the formations become subtler and subtler. Interestingly, although we read in Majjhima Nikaya 44 in Majjhima Nikaya 44, and I don't know what's the name of that sutta. So there we read about the meaning of fabrications. Let's see. Yes, so that's the Chula Vedalla Sutta. And in this Chula Vedalla Sutta, we get kind of detailed explanation. The explanation is absolutely not detailed at all, but it at least gives us a hope that we will understand one day. So the venerable, let's see. So there we get the question, now lady, what are fabrications? So these three fabrications, friend Visakha, okay, so Visakha, Mr. Visakha is asking a venerable nun, what are fabrications? So she explains there are three fabrications, that is bodily, verbal, and mental fabrications. And then she explains that bodily fabrications are the breath. Direct thought and evaluation are verbal fabrications, which means how you deal with the breath. So there is the inclination towards the object, and there is the maintenance of the object. The inclination is commonly translated as the applied thought, and the maintenance of the object is usually translated as sustained thought. Now, the inclination and the maintenance are very important in the beginning. They are very important for the first jhana because it's not that subtle yet. When you get used to your object and you get entirely very well familiar with your object, then you will not need that. You will not need to incline the mind towards the object and try to sustain the mind at the object or maintain it, because it's just there. You're already used to it so much. So in and out breaths are bodily fabrications, directed thought and evaluation, or in other words, the inclination and maintenance are verbal fabrications, perceptions and feelings are mental fabrications. So why are in and out breaths bodily fabrications? Why are directed thought and evaluation verbal fabrications? Why are perceptions and feelings mental fabrications? In and out breaths are bodily. These are things tied up with the body. That's why in and out breaths are bodily fabrications. Having first directed one's thoughts and made an evaluation, one then breaks out into speech. That's why directed thought and evaluation are verbal fabrications. Perceptions and feelings are mental. These are things tied up with the mind. That's why perception and feelings are mental fabrications. Although we talk about them as bodily, verbal, mental in this order, they do not really get subtle in this order. First, you can get first you can see. First, you can calm the bodily fabrications through. First, you can calm the verbal fabrications through achieving the second jhana. In the first jhana, you need all of the three. In the second jhana, you can continue through calming the verbal fabrications. Namely, you do not need to apply the mind, to incline the mind, and to maintain the mind with the object anymore. Then you can calm the bodily formations with the attainment of the fourth jhana, because in the fourth jhana you do not really need the breath anymore. And it's really true. Meditators often ask, is it really true that you do not have any breath in your fourth jhana? And indeed, there is no breath in the fourth jhana. The person is entirely without breath. Maybe you have seen the Dhamma talk of Venerable Ajahn Brahm, who describes an experience of one of his students who achieved apparently fourth jhana, and he did not breathe, and he was a layperson. his wife found out that her husband doesn't breathe, and so she transported him into a hospital. The doctors were amazed. Oh, this man doesn't breathe, but his body is still warm. What's going on? And they were trying to examine the body in various ways, and they were just not able to understand how this man is dead and alive at the same time. And then the man exited from the fourth jhana, and he was wondering what's going on. So it is true. In the fourth jhana, there is no breath. That means you stop breathing. I'm saying it as if you were 3 years old, but I'm trying to make it clear that it is exactly what you hear, that it's not some, oh, maybe you breathe a little or subtle or some other way, or no, 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 no. No breath. Totally no breath. Exactly that what you think is not possible, that's exactly what I'm saying that is happening during the fourth jhana. If you think this is a nonsense, then you have understood what I'm saying. And that's the point. The Buddha sometimes says that the Buddha's teachings is not logical. That deters some people from the Buddha's teachings. But I wonder whether the Buddha meant it is not logical within the scope of a worldly or of conceptual understanding. Because logic is always based on data. Things do not make sense when you miss data, but when you get sufficient data, suddenly certain things make sense. Exactly those that didn't make sense when you didn't have the data. Okay, so sometimes things seem illogical, not because they are illogical themselves, because they are nonsensical, but because we are missing certain data. We're missing certain information. And so here again, the idea that that meditation without breath and still living, even for 7 days in a row, the idea that this is nonsensical just shows that the person did not get sufficient data to make their conclusions. There are some more data to get. So with the fourth jhana, there is no more breath, but there is still life, and the person enjoys ultimate bliss. So just stopping your breath is not jhana. No, that's totally wrong, and we do not have any such practice in Buddhism. In fact, we understand it as an ascetic practice that is wrong, and that gets you on a wrong way. So we never do that. But with the third jhana, the meditator can notice that breath is coarse. And with the understanding that the breath is coarse, they just do not breathe. And as they do not breathe, they just continue with the fourth jhana, which is free from pleasure, but it's also free from breath. In fourth jhana, pleasure is substituted by equanimity. All of the 4 jhanas, and in fact, all of the 7 jhanas out of the 8, they require 2 things. They require perception and feelings. And so we continue here to the explanation. Perceptions and feelings are mental. They're things tied up with the mind. Now, the topic for today is calming the mental formations. But I suspect that some of you did not attend the previous lectures, so I needed to make sure that you have at least some basics of what I explained before. Now, mental formations, sanya, vedana, perception, and feelings can be suppressed without attaining nibbana. It is done by the 8th jhana. How do you achieve 8th jhana? By gradual abandoning bahana. You gradually abandon. So for the first jhana, you abandon the five hindrances. So you abandon lust, hatred, laziness, restlessness, doubt. For the second jhana, you abandon your applied thought, sustained thought, or as I like to suggest, the inclination of the mind towards the object and the maintenance of the mind on the object. So in the second jhana, you don't need them anymore because the mind is so familiar with the object that this is not needed. For the third jhana, you will need to also abandon joy. For the fourth jhana, you are abandoning pleasure, or well, peace. Pleasure is probably a better word here. And you substitute in place of pleasure, you put there equanimity. So you are no more appreciative, you are satisfied. So then at the fourth jhana, with this satisfaction, it is possible to notice that this form, all of the form, is in space, and emancipate yourself from the limits of the space, and thus achieve the perception of unlimited unlimited space, infinity. Yes, infinity of space. So that's the fifth jhana. Then when you achieve the level of infinite, because you have eradicated the limits of the breath and of materiality, so that's how you achieve the fifth jhana. To achieve the sixth jhana, you will have to abandon the limits of materiality. That means even of space. Space is still counted as materiality, although the jhana itself is understood as immaterial because there is nothing in that space. So for sixth jhana, you need to get beyond the space so that you understand, okay, so this space is known by consciousness. So let's abandon that space and concentrate on that consciousness alone that knows the space. And so you achieve infinity of consciousness. That's the jhana number 6. Then what you can do, you can look at this consciousness and you can say, okay, so even this consciousness is impermanent. Let's abandon this consciousness also. So then you get to the level of so-called nothingness. So as you have abandoned materiality and mentality, what remains is nothing. So you are there with the nothingness. And then from nothingness, you can notice that there is still some kind of feeling and perception of the nothingness. So you gradually abandon that feeling and perception as well. And thus you achieve the calming of mental formations, namely calming of feelings and perceptions. Calming of mental formations is very powerful level in meditation, which has an additional purpose or additional benefit. And that is, you can move on. It seems as if there is nothing beyond the level of neither perception nor non-perception. But there is. And that is the true eradication of perception and feelings, which is the ultimate nibbana. And that can be achieved without death. You do not have to die in order to achieve, to enter, which is the word used in our scriptures, enter the nibbana. But we will better not use the word experience, because to experience means that your consciousness is spread out. To carefully translate the Vietnamese way of saying the word experience, your mind is spread out over what's happening now. Now, instead of spreading out your mind simply does not arise. So in calming of perceptions and feelings, sanya vedaita nirodha, you entirely stop the arising and passing of the mind. So it's as if you heard some noise from outside, let's say from a radio, and suddenly there was a power cut. Some of you maybe not know what is power cut. So for those lucky ones, I'll explain. Power cut is when the electricity doesn't work anymore. The electric factory turns off electricity, so there is no electricity in the whole town. So that's also called power cut. And so power cut means that things do not have any power, so light is off, radio is off, everything is off. Back in the Middle Ages. So that's what happens. You do not have any more power. The mind does not arise anymore. Then after the determined time, and it's a really good thing to determine the time that you want to enter your attainment, be it Palasamapatti or Nirodha Samapatti. So entering the fruition, Nibbana, or entering the cessation, Nibbana. So it is very good to make a determination. You want to enter it for 30 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours or 1 day or 7 days. Our scriptures, of course, do not speak about 30 minutes or 1 hour, but Mahasi Sayadaw does. So it's not like that I made it up or something. No, it's coming actually from Mahasi Sayadaw. You may like to read his book, The Progress of Insight, where he suggests exactly that. So you can then determine whatever is the time you want to enter your Nibbana, and then the power should cut. When the power is cut, then it immediately is back again, except that the time is gone. So in Nibbana, there is no arising or passing away mind. The heart still beats, that's true. The temperature is still in the body, no breath. So this is calming of the mental formations. The Buddha suggests that a meditator who meditates on breath calms their 3 kinds of formations. So thus indeed he trains as, I will breathe in, calming the bodily fabrications. He trains as, I will breathe out, calming the bodily fabrication. When it is so, when calming thus, the chitta which has the breath as object does not arise, the subtle in and out breaths does not arise. The mindfulness of in and out breaths does not arise. The concentration based on the mindfulness of in and out breaths does not arise. The wise one who is endowed with this does not attain and also does not produce that calming. Thus, indeed, he trains as, I will breathe in, calming the bodily fabrication. He trains as, I will breathe out, calming the bodily fabrication. When it is so, when calming thus, the chitta which has the breath as object does arise, the subtle in and out breaths does arise, the mindfulness of in and out breaths does arise, the concentration based on the mindfulness of in and out breaths does arise. The wise one who is endowed with this does attain and produce that calming. Like what? Just like when a bronze gong is first struck, coarse sounds arise. When the clear, distinct, sharp mark of the coarse sound stops, subtle sounds arise after that. When the clear, distinct, sharp mark of the subtle sound stops, the mind which has the object of the mark of the subtle sound arises next after that. In the same way, first coarse in and out breaths arise. When the decipherableness, observability, locatableness of the mark of the coarse breath stops, the subtler sounds arise next. When the decipherableness, observability, locatableness of the mark of the subtle breaths stops, the mind which has the object of the mark of the subtle breath arises next. When it is so, when calming thus, the chitta which has the breath as object does arise, the subtle in and out breaths does arise, the mindfulness of in and out breaths does arise, the concentration based on the mindfulness of in and out breaths does arise. The wise one who is endowed with this does attain and produce that calming. How does he train as, I will breathe in calming the mental formation? He trains as, I will breathe out, calming the mental formation. What is mental formation? the mental factors of perception and sensation in terms of long in breath. These phenomena are mind-bound, mind fabrications. He trains by calming, dissolving, tranquilizing those mental fabrications. The mental factors of perception and sensation in terms of long out breaths, these phenomena are mind-bound, mind fabrications. He trains by calming, dissolving, tranquilizing those mental fabrications. In terms of breathing in, experiencing the mental fabrication, the mental factors of perception and sensation in terms of out breath, experiencing mental fabrication. These phenomena are mind-bound, mental fabrications. He trains by calming, solving, tranquilizing those mental fabrications. In and out breaths, calming mental fabrications is the sensation. The establishing is mindfulness. The contemplating is knowledge. The establishing of sensation is not mindfulness. The establishing of mindfulness is only mindfulness. So by that mindfulness, by that knowledge, he contemplates that sensation. So this is, I think, coming from Visuddhimagga, Anapanasati-katha. And so here we see that it seems it is actually possible to calm down the mental fabrications gradually, but they are fully tranquilized. They're entirely suppressed temporarily by the 8th jhana and completely, entirely, including all of the arising, passing mind through the Nirodha Samapatti. Here I need to also mention that not everybody is actually eligible to attain Nirodha Samapatti from the 8th jhana. Even though some people may attain 8th jhana, they still may not be able to attain Nirodha Samapatti. Because for Nirodha Samapatti, you need wisdom. Without wisdom, it doesn't work. So the Nirodha Samapatti, or the attainment of cessation, is actually dependent on your enlightenment level. If you have achieved the 3rd or the 4th level of enlightenment, that means if you're either a non-returner or an arahant, it is actually possible for you, after attaining the 8th jhana, to enter the attainment of cessation. Even if a stream-enter or once-returner, Sotapanna, Sakadagami, the 1st and 2nd levels of enlightenment, if they have achieved the 8th jhana, they will not be able to enter Nirodha Samapatti, because Nirodha Samapatti is dependent on wisdom. Okay, so now I will finalize by explaining what's wisdom. So wisdom is the absence of sanya vipallasa. So there are various kinds of sanya vipallasa, which means the distortion of perception. And let's see, sanya vipallasa. There are 4 kinds of sanya vipallasa. Distortions of perception. They are the idea that there's anything permanent, that there's anything pleasurable, anything self, and anything beautiful. These are the 4 characteristics of the world. Okay, anicca, dukkha, anatta, asubha. These 4, and these 4 help us better understand the difference between the 4 different levels of enlightenment. Because, for example, a stream enter actually has fully understood not self in all ways, not only by the view, but also in thinking and also in perception. So although a stream enter has understood not self in all of these 3 ways, they still did not really practically understand the problem of impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and ugliness. So because the stream enter has not understood them, they still commit actions which are based on ignorance, so-called abhisankara. And through these actions, they get new karma, and they still have to be born up to 7 times. But for example, an anagami has fully understood the problem of impermanence in both view, in all the view, perception, and view, perception, and thought. And they, however, an anagami still did not understand the problem of dukkha. And that's why an anagami still has some kind of inclination to enjoy the pleasure of jhanas. Only an arahant has fully understood anicca, dukkha, anatta, asubha on the level of view, perception, and thought. So this is sanya vipalas. And a person who still has sanya vipalasa related to permanence or beauty, such as a stream enter or once returner, they will not be able to enter the entire eradication of them all. Whereas a non-returner and an arahant will. Okay, so I think I definitely took more time than I thought I will. Let me see. Now I think is the best time to start questions and answers. If you would like to know anything, if you disagree with anything, I would love to know. And maybe I will learn something from you. I do not know everything. I still make a lot of mistakes. I'm still learning. So I would be very much appreciative if you can tell me if you disagree or if you have read some text that I may like to read too, to enrich my knowledge, or if you would like to share your experience with your meditation related to that, what I've just said, I would welcome that very much.
Sadhu, 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 Vande. Thank you for sharing such invaluable thoughts on the topic mental fabrication. So just to summarize, what we discussed today. So Bante explained about the mainly the 5 hindrances and offer like 30 solutions to overcome these obstacles on the journey to enlightenment. Bante also gave reference from the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 44, the Chula Vedala Sutta. Bante clarified that the term fabrication refers to mental formation or sankhara, which contributes to the arising of suffering. Bante also explained about the jhanas and how in the progression through the 6 jhanas, one can abandon various mental factors to deepen our meditative absorption. So briefly, I can summarize that, with the beginning with the first jhana, one can abandon sensual desire. And the second jhana, by letting go of applied and sustained thoughts. And in third jhana, one joy is abandoned, and the fourth jhana, abandoning all mental activities except for the concentrated awareness. And with fifth jhana, we abandon the perception of form, leading to an experience of infinite space. And finally, with the sixth jhana, we abandon the perception of limited consciousness, entering to a state of boundless consciousness. I think that's in in brief. And also Bante explained about the wisdom and what is wisdom, so which is the absence of sanya vipalasa. So sanya vipalasa, when a person still have sanya vipalasa, they may not be able to enter enlightenment, or they cannot eradicate all these hindrances. So thank you, Vande, for sharing your thoughts on this. So I believe participants listening to today's talk probably learned a lot from the discussion. So now we open up the forum for question and answers. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can also post your questions in the chat box.
Before we get to the questions answers, I see there's a little misunderstanding. And to make it very clear, I actually created a colorful table that will make it very clear. I was just wondering whether I should show it to you or not. Now I see that I definitely need to show it to you. So let me, yes, I see I can share the screen. So I have a little bit peculiar screen here. So let's see how far we can achieve this. But I would like to share with you this table that I have created for the purposes of explaining Sanya Vipallasa alone. Here it is. So I'm trying to share the window. Can you see a colorful table?
Yes, Bante.
Okay, so it's written in Pali, so I will explain to you what means what. Now, notice that this table is made up of 4 quadrants. So we have one quadrant here, then we have another quadrant, let's call them the quadrant 1 for Sotapanna, then we have quadrant 2 for Sakaragami, then we have quadrant 3 for Anagami, like this. And then we have quadrant 4 for, then we have quadrant 4 for Arahant, this much. Okay, I will extend it. Okay, can you still see the full table?
Yes.
Did I reveal a little bit from the right side of the table? Is it now clear?
It's clear.
It's clear. Okay. So now Sotapanna, and you can see that he has Sanya, Chitta, Ditti, Vipallasa. So Sanya Vipallasa is the distortion of perception. Chitta Vipallasa is the distortion in thought. Ditti Vipallasa is the distortion in view. Now we get here the columns of anicca, anicca niccang, that means permanence in impermanence, dukkha sukhang, which is pleasure in suffering, atta anatta atta, which is self in not self, and then asubhe subhang, beauty in what's ugly or non-beautiful. And now here you can already probably understand that the yellow means success. So a stream enter has already eradicated all of the anicca niccang, and anattane anatta. So anicca niccang, anattane anatta are entirely eradicated as sanya, as chitta, as ditti. But a stream enter still has weaknesses when it comes to understanding unsatisfactoriness. And that is mainly in perception and thought. The stream enter does not think that there is anything pleasurable, but behaves like that. And that's the point. Thinks like that, perceives like that. But if you ask a stream enter, him or her, whether they think that there is something truly pleasurable, they will always say no, except that they did not understand it to the sufficiently deeper level where it becomes real, where it becomes part of their life. The same thing is with Asubhe Subha. It's because of these weaknesses in the distortion of perception that the stream enter still can get pretty lustful, pretty angry. How much a stream enter can get lustful? I think you will be amazed if you haven't heard that story before. We have a story from the Buddha's time, not from the Buddha's period, but from the time when the Buddha lived. When a lady, a rich lady, fell in love with a hunter, a poor hunter who lived in the forest. And this lady was a stream enter by that time. So this lady fell, how do you call that? She was infatuated. The stream enter was infatuated with a hunter, a killer. At the moment when he was just loading, I think he was unloading the killed animals from his cart. And she just got so much infatuated with him that she came up to him. She probably saw him from some window or whatever. And she came up to him and she said, "Take me with you to the forest." And he says, "What? I don't know you. Go away." And she says, "No, take me with you. I really want to go with you." And he says, "No, I don't want you. I don't know you. Go away." And then this stream enter, rich lady tells to this poor hunter, "Oh, dear hunter, make use of a good opportunity until you have it." The hunter took this stream enter infatuated lady into the forest, and they had 7 children. 7, not 0, 7. And then, of course, there were some more things, but it's a little bit off topic today. So then, when the monks found out that the stream enter lady did what she did, they were wondering, how is it possible that this lady would be a stream enter, infatuated with a hunter? And as a woman in an ancient Indian society, of course, must serve the husband, including supporting and serving the husband in his job. And her husband was a hunter, so she had to prepare the arrows, the weapons, and so on for the husband. So the monks were wondering, hey, wait, how is this possible? A stream enter actually gets infatuated like this and then supports another person in killing like this? So the Buddha came in, and the Buddha found out about the monk's concern and explained. For a stream enter, this is like, I don't know. Yes, it's like when there is a skin on the hands, then when you touch something dangerous and you touch it carefully, it doesn't harm you. But for somebody who doesn't have protection on their hands, or they have ruptured skin, then of course, touching something dirty, dangerous will harm you. So this story shows us how immensely, unimaginably, a stream mentor can get infatuated. Most of you all here would never get infatuated to the level that she got infatuated with the hunter. Most of you all would give up immediately as the gentleman would tell you, "Go away, I don't know you." Okay. So I would like to make it very clear here that stream mentors can get very, very infatuated. Now with anger, it's a very big problem. Anger is a very, very interesting thing. As for anger, it's a little difficult. As for anger, it's a little difficult because in Buddhism, we strictly differentiate between anger and ill will. They're very different things. And also, it seems being righteous or admonishment is yet another totally different thing. Now, in modern world, we take all of the three as the same thing, but they're not. Now think about Venerable Moggallana, who grabbed a monk and threw him off from a room. Imagine you have 100 monks in a hall. Now a monk comes up to one of those 100 monks, forcefully grabs that monk and throws him out of the door. Is there any possibility that you will think that this monk is an arahant? I worry that there is 0% possibility. But that's exactly what Venerable Moggallana did. And he was an arahant. So as you can see, the characteristics of enlightened people are very complicated, very confusing. So it's very safe for monks not to say that they're enlightened. Because when they say they're enlightened and they do something that's totally fine for them as an enlightened person, but very not totally fine for you, then you may not believe in enlightenment itself. And that could be, to say it strictly, dangerous. So monks do not tell that they are enlightened. So if monks just behave the way they naturally behave as enlightened people, you do not worry because you do not think that they are enlightened. So it doesn't change your faith in the Buddha. Okay, so stream enter still has a little problem with unsatisfactoriness and ugliness, but once returner has reduced their distortion of perception regarding beauty. And that's where once returner does not get that much infatuated as a stream enter. So probably a once returner will not get more infatuated than you all here. Okay, so we are very much down to earth, nothing special. What becomes very special is a non-returner. That's very, very special. I mean, in our daily experience with such people. Of course, a stream enter is very extraordinarily special when we consider how much more suffering he has yet to go through before he or she pass away into ultimate nibbana. But in terms of your experience with them, they are not special at all. A stream enter himself or herself may actually doubt whether they are a stream enter. Like Mr. Mahanama, who sometimes got so angry, stream enter Mr. Mahanama, gentleman, businessman, sometimes he would get so angry with the wild animals on the road who disturbed his cart, his chariot, as he was doing his business. He sometimes would get so extremely angry with the animals that he worried that if he dies there, he will be born in hell. How often do you worry that your anger may take you to hell? So this gentleman got so worried, and then he came up to the Buddha and he said, "Oh, Buddha, I worry, sometimes I get so angry with these wild animals." And the Buddha says, "Do not worry. There is no worry for you." And the commentaries explain, because he was a stream enter. So even a stream enter may not really understand that they are stream enter. Then what to say about you understanding that someone else is a stream enter, right? Okay, so we have then non-returner. Non-returner has entirely eradicated all distortion of perception with regards to beauty, and only an arahant has eradicated all distortion of perception in all aspects, in all respects. Now, my point here is to show you that anagami and arahant can achieve nirodha samapatti. They can achieve the true calming of mental formations, whereas sotapanna and sakaragami cannot. What is the difference? The difference is in asubha. Through this understanding that there is nothing beautiful in this world, it is possible to liberate ourselves. Without this understanding, with the attachment or acceptance of any beauty in this world, it seems it is simply not possible to achieve, to enter the attainment of cessation. So that was a little, a big addition to my speech, so that you're very clear about what is sanya vipallasa, and also that you are more forbearing with people who might be enlightened. Okay, because people who are enlightened. That's their problem. It's not your problem, and they will just follow their nature. Whether a nature of an enlightened person is like this or like that, you will not change it. Regardless what you want, what you wish that a stream enter or once returner like, that will not change the nature. They will just be the way they are. Okay, so if there are any questions, now is the best time.
Yeah, sadhu, 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 Bande. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can also post your question in the chat box.
Somebody asked me, please send number of sutta referred now. And I'm not sure which sutta do you mean. Do you mean the one that I made the table from?
No, I believe he was referring to the Majjhima Nikaya.
To the Chula Vedala Sutta?
Yeah.
44. Okay.
44, yes.
Yes. And the note from the Anapana Satikatha is surely from Visuddhimagga. Now, this what the table that I have made is actually based on an explanation in Parisambhidamagga, which is also Pali scripture, and further detail in the sub-commentary to Anguttara Nikaya. So I will try to send to you all of that note. It's just Pali language. And based on this Pali language, I have created this table.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante, for sharing that.
Yes, Dr. Sheetal Meshram.
Vandami Bhante. Bhante, my question is like based on this table, like what's happening here? Like in Tanuko, I don't understand like what Asubhe
Yeah, Tanuko means reduced.
reduced.
Tanu means soft, softened, literally softened. So uppajjate means arises. Tanuko means it's softened.
Yes,
Is
Bhante.
it clear?
Yes.
Yeah, now I realize that I'm still sharing the screen.
Bhante, you mentioned like the Anagami because he has this still eighth jhana you mentioned like my question was around that like if the Anagami went to the path through not the jhana way but not the samatha way, uh, I mean is that still a possibility, Bhante, like earlier you were describing?
No way. Without the eighth jhana, it's not possible to enter the Nirodha Samapatti. But Anagami, after Anagami dies, he or she may be born in a Brahma world, and specifically in the Suddhavasa, so-called pure abodes. And there, gradually, at one point, Anagami will become an arahant and then pass away into the ultimate Nibbana. And an arahant who did not achieve eighth jhana still cannot achieve Nirodha Samapatti, that's true, but an arahant upon their death will cease into the ultimate Nibbana. So the Nirodha Samapatti is optional. The ability to really enter the ultimate Nibbana is not available for to all those who potentially should be able to have it. It's necessary to get there through the proper key. If you don't have the key, you cannot get there. I think we could make some kind of nice simile for this. Maybe like as if you had an agreement, as if you like had an agreement with somebody to see the king's treasury and to take whatever you want, but only after some time. And then you would also be allowed to enter it before for a short while if you have the key. If you come for the key, you come to see the king, you ask him for permission, he will give you the key and you can use it for a short while, the treasury, but not for a long time. Now, suppose that you just cannot come to see the king because you are injured or because you're ill, because you're too weak. So you cannot see the treasury. But after that time that you have agreed on, you will be able to come and use the treasury for as long as you want. So in a similar way, a fully enlightened person, after some time, will pass into ultimate Nibbana. But if they ask, that means if they achieve the eighth jhana, If they ask for the key, then they can actually get the key into the ultimate Nibbana for a short time.
So Bhante, just to clarify my doubt. So those who have achieved, or those who have become Anagami and Arhant through the Samatha and achieved 8th jhana, then only they can go into Nirodha Samapatti. Otherwise,
That's
those
right.
who have gone through the Suddha Vipassaka by passing the Samatha, they cannot go into Nirodha Samapatti, right? Is that
Sukha.
Sukha
Sukha Vipassaka.
Sukha, yes.
Vipassaka, yes. Sukha Vipassaka, yes. Sukha Vipassaka can, however, achieve Phala Samapatti. Okay, so we have Nirodha Samapatti, Phala Samapatti. It's
Yes.
getting a little complicated. So Phala Samapatti is also entering Nibbana. Nirodha Samapatti is also entering Nibbana. For Nirodha Samapatti, the Anagami, Arahant, they will need the 8th jhana, otherwise, sorry. Even if they're super Arahant, whatever you want to think of that, no, they cannot achieve Nirodha Samapatti without first getting into the 8th jhana. The 8th jhana is like a portal to the Nirodha Samapatti. Now, as for those who are Sukha Vipassaka and who have, or simply those who do not have the 8th jhana. So if they have 7th jhana, they still cannot enter Nirodha Samapatti. Okay, if they must have 8th jhana and they must enter the 8th jhana, and then from the 8th jhana, they move on towards the Nirodha Samapatti. It's not like, oh, they attained 8th jhana last year, so today let's go into Nirodha Samapatti. It doesn't work like that. The person must now go to the 8th jhana, and then now from the 8th jhana, move on to the Nirodha Samapatti. It's like a door. You cannot really get inside without that door. You need to go through that door. So Sukha Vipassaka can, however, enter Phala Samapatti. And Phala Samapatti is something that I can understand based on suttas, but when it comes to Abhidhamma, I'm having a serious problem that even Abhidhamma Pitaka masters were not able to answer to me. So if you want more questions, I can provide. So here the problem is with Phala Samapatti, that in Phala Samapatti, you're supposed to have consciousness. Now, the problem is that this is a very special consciousness. It's not the normal consciousness. It is a very special consciousness. It is called the Palachitta, the fruition consciousness. And that's a problem. I believe it's a problem because how can you have Nibbana consciousness? Pala means Nibbana. How can you have Nibbana consciousness? Hey, wait, so Nibbana is no consciousness, consciousness is no Nibbana. So how can you have a Nibbana consciousness? It's like having a cat dog. You cannot really, like, cat is something else, dog is something else, right? How do you want to have black white? It doesn't really work like that. Or I believe so. So that's exactly what the later Abhidhamma commentary, sub-commentary suggest, that you actually in Phala Samapatti, that the attainment is attainment of Nibbana, but it's not pure. Still mind arises. And what arises is this Phala consciousness, is this Nibbana consciousness. So how is this Nibbana consciousness explained by the Abhidhamma masters? As the consciousness that tastes Nibbana. Wait. But Nibbana is without consciousness. So how can you taste something that's without experience? You cannot really experience if there's no feeling or perception, right? So how can you experience non-experience? And they are simply not able to explain that. And it's just not in accordance with the Buddha's teachings. Because the idea is to get free from all sankharas, to get free from everything that's conditioned. So if you can achieve this consciousness which arises, passes, well, then that means you're achieving something conditioned and not unconditioned. How can the conditioned see unconditioned? The Buddha himself says that the Buddha himself explains that, now I'm not, I see, day and night. The Buddha explains that Nibbana and Samsara are like day and night. They're opposite. You cannot really have day-night. You have either day or you have night. Yes, there's some transition in between, but you cannot have like day-night. You know what I mean? You cannot like say, okay, now we have day-night. No, it doesn't work. Either it's day or night, or it's a transition between them. Now here we are talking about Palasamapatti that should be available for an enlightened person for a long time, let's say a day or maybe several days continuously. And it's supposed to be very powerful, very interesting thing. Like the great king Bimbisara, when he was condemned to death in the prison, he did not receive anything to eat. Then the queen would bring honey to the king, and then she would butter, maybe she would apply it on his body, and then he would be licking that, and thus he would sustain himself. But then the queen was revealed, and so she didn't have access. So the king, to maintain his life, he actually entered Palasamapatti of a stream enter. And thus he actually sustained himself. So his actually attainment served as a sustenance, as nutrition. So it's a pretty powerful thing. And he was actually walking while being in this Palasamapatti. But how can you explain that there's consciousness and Nibbana at the same time? When I asked this from a great Abhidhamma master in Myanmar, who actually doesn't speak in English, I actually spoke with him in Burmese. And I generally study Dhamma in Burmese. So he was not able to explain it to me. He said he actually also doesn't really understand it. But he said that their teacher, his teacher, means a bigger expert on Abhidhamma, says that the palachitta, the consciousness of the fruition of Nibbana, tastes Nibbana. I don't know. I would like to know more how the great masters found out about this, because we do not read about this in suttas, no, zero. So there, of course, if you are not a strict Theravada monk, you will say, that's commentary, that's not from the Buddha, and you're resolved. But that's not how I resolve things. I would like to know, where did this idea come, and what experience, what evidence is this idea of the palachitta based on?
Yes, Bhante, I will ask one of the Abhidhamma teacher. But thank you for bringing this on. I mean, it's very interesting, and we are just talking in theoretical part, but maybe experiential knowledge is lacking. I'm just talking about myself, so maybe those who experience have a different level of understanding things than just theory part. So, but thank you so much, Bhante. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante. I see a comment in the chat box from Mr. Narendra. So I think his question, or he's commenting that if his understanding is correct or not, that a stream enterer may not know that he is a Sotapanna.
Yes. So a stream enter, based on the story of Mr. Mahanama, it seems that a stream enterer may not understand that a stream enterer is a Sotapan. And I will take it a little bit to the extreme. And I will say that maybe even a non-returner doesn't really understand that. So what does this mean? It's a word, Sotapanna. You move your tongue, your lips, your teeth in such a way that you pronounce it. Now that's in Pali. Now in English, you would not say that. You would say stream enter. You see the tongue, the lips, the teeth do a little bit different thing. For example, in Burmese, you would say totapan. Probably if I told you totapan somewhere on the street, you would have no idea what I'm talking about. But in Myanmar, if you would say Sotapanna, they will never be able to understand what you're talking about, even if they're an arahant. You see? So how do you know that you're Sotapanna? Maybe you're Totapan, but you don't know that you're Sotapanna. Or maybe you know you're Sotapanna, but you don't know that you're Totapan. In other words, it's a sound. It's a sound. And this sound is created by teeth, tongue, and lips. And then, how to say that? Besides that, we have the experience, the reality of understanding impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, of full eradication of wrong view, how's that? Wrong, doubt about the Buddha, the self-view, and the wrong practices, the first three of the 10 fetters. So the three fetters are entirely eradicated. That is the experience. That's the reality. But then there's the word. So how do these two things, this reality and the word, connect? And I believe they do not connect. Somebody else needs to come and tell you, no, they actually connect. If you don't know, it's possible for you to achieve that reality. And of course, you know that reality, but you don't know the word. So many people may be actually free from the self-view, from the doubt, from the wrong practices. So sakkaya ditthi vicikiccha silabbata paramasa, but they don't know that this is called sotapan or todapan or strumenter. They may not know it. And with that, they may not know the consequences of such calling. So we know from our scriptures that somebody, I think Venerable Sariputta, was asked by the ascetics whether it's actually possible for a Sotapanna to go to hell. And he didn't know. An arahant didn't know it. So he had to ask the Buddha, and the Buddha said, yes, actually, there's no way how a strumenter could ever be born in hell or in the lower realms, such as hell, animal realms, and ghosts. So it's interesting, but I would like to add here that if this is so, then it is very rare. So you cannot just say, oh, maybe all of these streamenters, all of these meditators in this meditation center don't even know that they're streamenters. No, that doesn't work. It probably will be extremely rare. Even in our scriptures, it seems that this would be very rare that somebody would be doubting about it. How did I come with this idea of a non-returner? Because there is a case of a layperson who meets a monk, and the monk asks the layperson, so layperson, how's your practice? And he explains to the monk, not that he is a non-returner, which is probably what people would do today. He doesn't say that he's anagami or non-returner or something else or some other word, but he just says that he has eradicated all lust and all ill will. And that is then explained in the discourse or in the text that he is a non-returner. So he doesn't really say that he is a non-returner. He just says the benefits that he has got from his meditation. Does he really know that he's a non-returner? We don't know whether he knows it or not. But I personally believe that he doesn't have to. Because why do we meditate? Do we meditate so that we get a label? Or do we meditate for those so-called benefits, so that we eradicate lust, ill will, laziness, restlessness, and doubt forever, so that we eradicate birth, old age, illness, and death, so that we eradicate greed, hatred, ignorance? I think that's what matters. And whether we call the person a strumenter or an apple or banana doesn't really make any difference. It, of course, makes difference when we teach Dhamma and when we want other people to be inspired. But practically, I worry that it causes a little bit of confusion among the people. As I've already mentioned, many people imagine something else under strumenter than what they would correctly imagine. You will not, a non-strumenter will probably not be able to imagine what it is like to be a strumenter. Just like an arahant probably will never be able to imagine what it is like to be a Buddha.
Yeah, sadhu, Bante. I believe that give some clarification to Narendra ji? I mean, of course,
If Mr. Narendra would like to clarify his question or add anything, I think it's the best time to do that. Maybe he's not here. Oh, here, I see.
yeah, he's
So
here.
if you are here, you can tell us, either unmute yourself or tell us in the chat box, and we can continue.
Thank you very much, Bante.
Yeah, so
Hello.
the next question is,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bante ji. Explained very nicely. Thank you very much. These all things are so complicated that even passing from one stage to another, you cannot understand what is the stage. So practically we don't know the levels of jhanas. Once we
I
cross
see,
one
yeah.
level to other, we can't just understand that we have gone to fourth jhana or fifth jhana.
That takes us
Thank
back
you.
to the Upadhyaya Sutta. That takes us back to the Upadhyaya Sutta, very important one, where the Buddha explains that a good friend is 100% of our progress. So it's very important that when we meditate, we have a good friend or a teacher who is able to somehow assume, at least a little better than us, where we are, so that the teacher can guide us or at least provide us encouragement for progress.
In other words, teachers can understand our levels. Is it so, sir?
Sometimes we can, but I believe that a teacher who has more objective view and who wishes the best to the student, a teacher may prevent the student's delusion from the mind, because as the student is meditating, the student wants results. The student is putting so much effort into that, so much sacrifice into that, that the student might not be able to understand that sometimes that sacrifice, that letting go, does not bring result as yet. So the teacher is there to counterbalance the power of the mind, the deceptive power of the mind. When we put a lot of effort in that, maybe you know from school that when you work hard for exam, you expect higher grade, and when you work little, you expect lower grade, right? It's the same thing in meditation. When we meditate very, very hard, we expect very, very high progress and fast progress. When we meditate very little, we don't expect so much of progress. Now, suppose that you meditate very, very hard and you do not really achieve any level. What would that do with you? But unfortunately, the nature is such that people meditate very, very hard and they do not really achieve any level. But the mind will somehow make it. Unconsciously, it will make it. And because of this unconscious desire and somehow like self-preservation, because that's what preserves your identity, like I'm the one who tries, right? And here's the proof. Or no proof, aha, so am I actually the one who tries, or what's this? You see, it would be a conflict with the mind. So the teacher is there to balance this problem, where the mind deceptively persuades the meditator that they have got some achievement when they got nothing.
Right, sir. Thank you very much, Bante ji. Thank you very much. Good talk.
yeah, thank you. I see a question from Vikas. So after which jhana vipassana meditation will commence?
This is very controversial point. This is a very controversial point. It's not so much about the jhana, but it's more about, do you actually need any concentration practice at all for vipassana? Because from some commentaries, it actually seems you do not need any samatha at all. It's like Eightfold Noble Path, no need. 7 is enough. Yes, it's so interesting. But I'm not sure I actually know a teacher who would specifically like accept that. Like even the teacher who would like to take you through the shortest of the shortcuts will usually teach you one way or another some kind of samatha. And the traditional limit, minimum limit, is upachara samadhi. So as soon as you get your nimitta, then yes, your sign of concentration, then the teachers oftentimes understand your samatha as sufficient for moving on to vipassana. And it will depend on the teacher. So if the teacher wants to take you to vipassana very fast, they will. If they don't, they won't. Sometimes the student, however, may request, Venerable Sir, I would like to start with vipassana as soon as possible. That sometimes works with some teachers. But I'm not really sure that I know a teacher who would entirely bypass all samatha. But the commentaries do actually mention, it would take me probably some time to search the reference back, but the commentaries do actually mention that you do not need any samatha at all for your vipassana, because the vipassana, when it's practiced correctly, is samatha itself. So based on this concept of Kanika Samadhi, which the Buddha never ever pronounced, or Venerable Ananda never ever remembered the Buddha pronouncing it, the samatha factor of the Eightfold Noble Path is included in Vipassana. So with the practice of Vipassana, with the clear stability of mind, which is samadhi, actually means stabilized mind, so stability of mind, then the Vipassana actually is accompanied by concentration. That means by being in the present moment through your full willingness. You want to be in the present moment, and so you are. That's the point. Not that you are in the present moment because you're just now lucky or because you slept well. No, you're in the present moment because you want it. So you have it. So that's when we get samatha. And this samatha gets, or samadhita. Sorry. So it's actually samadhi, and samatha will be when you concentrate. And here the idea is that you do not need the concentration of samatha, but you need samadhi, not tha. You do not need samatha, you need samadhi. And samadhi is the stability of mind, and you achieve stability of mind with vipassana. And so you do not need samatha, you're fine with samma samadhi. The fact that the Buddha explained samma samadhi as the fourth jhana, nobody cares. Samma samadhi is for jhana, except it's not.
Yeah. Sadhu, Bante. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, or you can also post in the chat box. I see a question in the chat box from Dr. Kisaldai. For Sukha Vipassaka, pure insight meditation, what is the object of the meditation?
So here we are getting into the different methods. You do not really need to, there is probably no one way that works for everybody. There is probably not even one way that works for every Sukha Vipassana. So you will be always dependent on your teacher. It's so powerful to have a teacher. It's very different from not having a teacher. Because with not having a teacher, you cannot have doubt about your teacher, that's true, but you will have more doubt about yourself. So with a teacher, you can trust. And there is the mutual cooperation. So the teacher provides you with an instruction, and you try it out and tell the teacher the results. Then the teacher, based on what you say, will either encourage you to continue or improve or change the meditation method. When you practice Sukha Vipassaka, when you practice a pure Vipassana, that means without any samatha, there are still, however, some constraints, some things that are not recommended and things that are recommended. So in Myanmar, traditionally, it's very much recommended that everybody who practices Vipassana, be they Sukha or not Sukha, everybody who practices Vipassana should, that's the correct word, should, that's the feared word, should. Okay, who's that? Marshall, what's his name? The founder of Nonviolent Communication, Mr. Marshall, he says that should is one of the vulgar words, one of the most vulgar words. So should is a vulgar word. That's because should shows that you are somebody who's like subordinate and who needs to follow whether you like it or not. But in this case, however, we will have to say should because there is no other way according to these masters. And should, what should you? And that is to start observing the body. So it is not possible, according to these masters, to achieve enlightenment, to progress in Vipassana properly without understanding the impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self in the body first. And I can nothing but agree. I just feel this is so true. This is so true. Because I stayed 5 years in a monastery where the students do not start with the body, where they start with mind. And I know how serious misunderstandings they had. I started with the body anyway, but that's because I came there from a different monastery and I was rather scholarly than meditating. But then after I came there, I meditated very intensively. Shwe Umen Toya. So I stayed 5 years in Shwe Umen Toya in Myanmar, a center very famous for Chittanupassana, for observing the mind. Nobody teaches their Chittanupassana. Nobody. I don't think Sera Uttajaniya ever taught Chittanupassana. No, I don't think so. Chittanupassana is distinguishing the present mind as one of 16 mental states. And I never heard Venerable Tejaniya, during the 5 years that I lived there, say anything of the number 16, let alone 16 states of mind as explained in Chittanupassana. But the Sayadaw teaches Anupassana of Chitta, and that's true. He teaches observing the mind. And this observing of the mind is creating a huge problem with his students. The students, as they do not observe the body, they observe only the mind, and they do like free observations. They do not have the limitation of objects like the 60. They do not have to label them. Like in the Buddha's teachings, you have to label. You get a set of objects and you observe that. Either you get set of objects for samatha, 1 to many, or you get a set of objects for vipassana, 1 or many, based on the instruction that you get. In Satipatthana Sutta, which contains, I count it as 22, but commentaries is 21. It would be for a different time. So there the Buddha gives 22 instructions for observing the present moment. And in all of these instructions, you get a set of objects, either one, like in breath, or many, like in Dhammanupassana, when you observe your 6 consciousnesses, you happen to actually observe 30. What's that? You observe 6 times 10 is 60 times 5 is 300 objects. So you have to distinguish the present moment as one of 300 objects. You have to learn those 300. It's not so difficult because it's 6 times 10 times 5. But you have to learn, you have to know, distinguish the present moment, which one of the 300 it is now. But you have 300, not 301. You see, it's a set. So in Shwe Umen Toya, you do not have a set. You just observe whatever is in the mind. I don't remember the Buddha teaching that kind of method. Anyway, the problem there is that as the students observe the mind, and they observe it very ardently and very enthusiastically and very deep, they come to the very weird conclusion that there is no matter, that everything that is only the mind. Now, whether everything that is only the mind or not is not my topic today. And I don't want to, I would have to have a separate Dhamma teaching lesson to explain that there is mind and body at the same time, and that there is neither of the two more important. But these meditators who did not observe the matter, they come to the conclusion that there's only mind. And in our scriptures, and that's what we follow, in our scriptures is explained that you first need to have the ability to distinguish the body from the mind as the very first level of your insight practice. Nama Rupa Paricheda Jnana, the knowledge of distinguishing the body and the mind. This is the number one knowledge in the practice of Vipassana. I have mentioned here the 16 stages of Vipassana. And the very first one, the very base one, is the fact that you clearly know, understand, accept, see that there is body and mind, and that they are here, that they are different things. Only the second level teaches you, or second level means that you understand their codependence, their interdependence. Mind is dependent on the body, body is dependent on the mind. They're not so dependent on each other in the reality in general, but in the human they are. Then the third level is again, basically 1, 2, 3 are all about this body, mind, how to say that? Dualism. Some people are afraid of dualism because that's what Hinduism and Mahayana have done. Dualism, be scared. So, are you slaves of Mahayana or Hinduism? Are you scared when I say the word dualism? No need to be scared of words. So dualism has several meanings based on the context. And in this context, we're talking about the so-called Cartesian dualism, body and mind difference. Some scientists say that Cartesian dualism, that means that there is body and mind and that they are different, has been rejected. But whenever I search in Google or in Google Scholar or in books or wherever, so how was it rejected? I never find any information about it. So if you want to say as a scientist that something was rejected, you say it was rejected and so that's the holy truth. I worry that is becoming common among the scientific community. But that's not science. That's religion. I worry that sometimes scientists are more bigotic than some of the religious bigots. Okay, so the body and mind must be understood. And it seems that if you meditate on the mind first, you will not be able to appreciate the nature of body as a separate entity, as a separate reality. Only if you start with the body, it may be possible for you to understand the nature of the body fully and thus distinguish it from the mind and see that both of them are. They are not in the sense that now they are, but they're in the sense that they are realities, that they're ultimate realities. So we see in the Abhidhamma teaching, the basic Abhidhamma teaching distinguishes reality into 4 ultimate things. Nibbana, Chitta, consciousness, Cetasika, the accompanying phenomena of consciousness, and Rupa, matter. These are the 4 ultimate realities. Not that there are 2, Nibbana and Chitta, no. Or 1, Chitta, no. 4 are there. Rupa, Chitta, Cetasika, Nibbana. Must be all 4. If the yogi fails to understand that these are different things, unfortunately, according to Theravada teachings, there is no progress for them. They did not even really start any progress at all in their Vipassana practice. So for a Sukha Vipassaka, if I were to instruct them meditation, I would instruct them first and foremost as Vipassana, but I always instruct my students first loving kindness. So if I were to instruct Vipassana at the first moment, I would instruct observing the repulsiveness of the body with the intention to gradually guide the student from repulsiveness of the body into the 4 elements of the body. Then the student would understand the materiality in the ultimate sense. When the student has understood the 4 ultimate the 4 elements of the body, then I would introduce the student gradually to observing the mind. I would first, that's not what I would, but that's what I do. So when I teach the students, I first teach them loving kindness, then I teach them repulsiveness of the body, then 4 elements. When they have mastered or when they have understood the meditation on 4 elements and are able to distinguish the different body parts in the way as the Buddha explains in Maharahulovada Sutta. So we keep it a little bit superficial. Later we can go deeper. So when they have understood that pretty clearly, then I teach them Sera Uttajaniya's method, observing the mind in general. Whatever is there, be aware of it. Not because they would be supposed to achieve enlightenment or get any wisdom at all. The idea here is that they will be able to distinguish the body from the mind. So mind is this, body is that. When I feel that they have understood the difference between the body and the mind, in other words, the body is the 4 elements, mind is everything else. So when they have understood what somewhat may be the mind, then I ask them to distinguish the 16 mental states according to Chittanupassana. And then I gradually lead them in observing the remaining 4 aggregates. So they have already observed the aggregate of the body, and then I gradually teach them observing intentions, and then gradually subtler and subtler. So from intentions, then perceptions, feelings, and in the end, they end the retreat by observing consciousness.
Yeah. Sadhu, Bante. I don't see any more questions. Bante, now I request you to do Anumodana for the merits that we earned for listening Dhamma today.
Okay. So, Anumodana. I will surprise you with something very interesting. Anumodana. You definitely can invite others for Anumodana. That's actually, the word is pretty good. But the way how it's dealt is not supported in the scriptures. You may like to know that when I say things, I try to keep myself as faithful to the scriptures as I can. Okay, there are some things that I cannot, but I do my best. And when it comes to sharing merits, we're facing a little difficulty in terms of our scriptures. Up to my understanding, up to my memory, up to my present history of my studies, I have never seen any case, any mention in our scriptures where somebody would be sharing merit of sila or bhavana or dhamma desana or dhamma savana, the morality, meditation, listening to dhamma, teaching dhamma. I do not see sharing merit, any of these 4 kinds of merit, anywhere in our scriptures, be it the main scriptures, commentaries, subcommentaries. I just don't see it anywhere. But I see there a lot of sharing merit of material things. So somebody gives flowers, or somebody gives a monastery, or somebody gives food. Yeah, food is the most common. Food or monastery or robes and so on and on. Then they share merit. Yes, that we can see so many times. But never the case of sharing merit of sila, bhavana, sila, samadhi, panya. That would be a pretty good list. So sila, samadhi, panya, I don't see that. You can definitely invite people to be happy, invite deities and ghosts and other beings to be happy, but you cannot really share it as a merit. So if they don't come, they will not have it. And also, regarding this sharing merit, I think it's because it's practical. Because how will these hungry ghosts eat from Dhamma? How will they how will they dress Dhamma? It's not practical. You can go, for example, to an Indian, how do you call them? Ghetto. You can go to an Indian ghetto and start to teach them. Well, you could teach them Dhamma, that's true, but it would not really help them, to get food and clothes and so on. The Dhamma is very helpful when the people have something to eat, when they have something to dress, or when you have nothing else to give them. But sharing this with ghosts or deities, I've never seen that. If deities don't come for Dhamma, they just lost it. Sorry. If deities come for Dhamma, there is nothing to share anymore because they already heard it, right? So they already got the maximum. As for ghosts, I'm not sure whether ghosts can actually understand Dhamma, but ghosts definitely are hungry and they feel cold and they need food and place to stay and robes, clothes. So when we share merit, it's best to share something material that we have given, be it, and there are 10 things you may have given. Annang panang vattanyanang mala gantha vilepanang seya avasata padipana. So that's food, food, drink, clothes, flowers, perfumes, ointments, places to sleep, like beds, places to live, like houses, and, oh, something is weird. Annang is food, panang is drink, vattang is clothes, oh, I see, vehicles, like cars. Then we get the flowers, perfumes, ointments, places to sleep, places to live, and the light, like oil lamps. So these things, if you donate, you can share merit of that. That is specifically in our scriptures. That's reliable. But everything else, anything else, if you cannot somehow understand it as one of these 10 things, will be contentious, will be a problem because it's not in the scriptures. So what can I do about it? But we can definitely invite beings to share, to enjoy our merits of these 10 things that we have done in the past, let's say 7 days, according to Venerable Pema Siri in Sri Lanka. And we can encourage others to listen to Dhamma. So we can do the sharing of merits. The sharing of merits is explained in Tirokutta Sutta of Kuttaka Nikaya. It is done by 2 sentences or 2 lines of 1 verse. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukhita hontu nyatayo. So this is for you, my relatives. May my relatives be happy. And then we can invite the deities, and that's a little bit fantastical. So not sure how will you feel about it, but it means may the powerful dragons and gods in heavens and on earth rejoice of our merits and for a long time protect the Buddha's teachings, the Buddhist religion, and me. And then we can make a wish that the Dhamma stays for a long time, the true Dhamma. So that's a very common way how Dhamma teachings are concluded in Myanmar, where they say Chirang Tithatu Sad Dhammo. They also have another version, but one of them is more common in the scriptures and one of them is not so. So Chirang Tithatu Sad Dhammo means may the Buddha's teachings, the true Buddha's teachings, exist for a long time. So is that what would be satisfactory to do?
Yes, Bante.
That seems fine. Okay, so how shall we do it? Would you like to repeat after me?
Yeah. I mean, you can do it by yourself. I mean, I will repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, you can repeat after me. So that's the way how we usually do it. And then the last sentence, however, we need to do together at the same time. Chirang Tithatu Sadam is just 3 words. Then I will help you to remember that. So first we start sharing the merit. And I've already explained what it means. This is for you, my relatives. May my relatives be happy. So you can repeat after me. Chirang.
Chirang.
Tithatu. Sorry. So idangvo. Yes. Idangvo.
Idangvo.
Nyatinang.
Nyatinang.
Hotu.
Hotu.
Sukhita.
Sukhita.
Hontu.
Hontu.
Nyatayo.
Nyatayo.
Idangvo.
Idamvo.
Nyatinang hotu.
Nyatinang hotu.
Sukhita hontu.
Sukhita hontu.
Nyatayo.
Nyatayo.
Idangvo.
Idamvo.
Nyatinang hotu.
Nyatinang hotu.
Sukhita hontu.
Sukhita hontu.
Nyatayo.
Nyatayo.
Okay. Now we will invite the powerful beings to rejoice of our merit. So you can repeat after me. Akasattha.
Akasatta.
Jabhummatha.
Jabhummatha.
Devanaga.
Devanaga.
Mahidhika.
Mahiddhika.
Punyantang.
Punyantan.
Anumoditva.
Anumoditva.
Chirang.
Chirang.
Rakhantu.
Rakhantu.
Desanam.
Desanam.
Akasattha.
Akasatta.
Jabhummatha.
Jabhummatha.
Devanaga.
Devanaga.
Mahidhika.
Mahiddhika.
Punyantang.
Punyantan.
Anumoditva.
Anumoditva.
Chirang.
Chirang.
Rakhantu.
Rakhantu.
Sasanam.
Sasanam.
Akasattha.
Akasatta.
Jabhummatha.
Jabhummatha.
Devanaga.
Devanaga.
Mahidhika.
Mahiddhika.
Punyantang.
Punyantan.
Anumoditva.
Anumoditva.
Chirang.
Chirang.
Rakhantu.
Rakhantu.
Mang parang.
Mang parang.
So now we can wish that the Buddha's teachings stay for a long time, and this will be reciting together at the same time. So it's the three words, Chirang Tithatu Saddhammo. So Chirang means for a long time. Tithatu, may it stay, may it exist. Saddhammo, the true Dhamma. So we can start together. Chirang Tithatu Saddhammo. Chirang Tithatu Saddhammo. Chirang Tithatu Saddhammo. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, Bhanteji.
Yeah, Bhanteji, we are deeply grateful to you and thank you for your presence and teachings. I also thank everyone for participating in today's Dhamma session. Your commitment to learning Dhamma and personal growth, which is truly inspiring. So to receive details about next week's Dhamma session, please stay connected to our Living Dhamma WhatsApp group. So that's all for today. So Bhante, do we have your permission to close today's Dhamma session?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, for your patience, for listening. If you would like to ask me something or you would like to try any of my meditation retreats or anything else, you can send me an email to monksarana@gmail.com. monksarana@gmail.com. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be successful in everything you do.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yeah.
Until we meet again next week, Namo Buddhaya.